with Daisy was wisdom. Because when you're married to a Cuban American of Lebanese descent, you better know when to ask for permission. A week later, I call him and I say, Pastor Rivera, listen, I prayed to my Lord and he hasn't responded. I really haven't felt that little voice in my heart. But Daisy gave me the go-ahead, the green light, and I'm going to call my pastor, Delgado. I take him to lunch. I confide in him my conversation with Pastor Rivera, and he says, yeah, you need to do it. We're counting on you. You're the man. I said, are you sure? But now with Pastor Delgado, I'm not going to tell him I got to pray on it, or I'm not going to tell him I have to discuss it with Daisy, because immediately my obedience to my pastor kicked in, as well as my joyful patience, which is a gift of the Holy Spirit. So I started to work on this ministry. A week goes by and I get a call from Pastor Delgado. He said, Bermejo. Now, when he calls me by my last name, I know it's important. I said, yes, Pastor. He says, Bermejo, I need you to go to Chicago. Now, I love Chicago. Great steakhouses, beautiful architecture, urban sculpture. I love it. I mean, it didn't take too convincing. I said, what do you have in mind? He says, well, listen, Bill Winston has an annual leadership conference at Living Word Christian Center. There will be speakers from all over the world, and I want you to go to Chicago to represent Alpha and Omega. I said, Pastor, are you sure? He said, Pastor, I come to a Spanish service. I read the Bible in Spanish. I study it in Spanish. I meditate in Spanish. I even have revelations in Spanish. What am I doing in an American church? He said, just do it. Before he hangs up the phone, he says, Bermejo, that book you wrote, what's the name? And I said, Saliendo de la Oscuridad. Just take it, promote it, and sell it. I said, Pastor, the book's in English. Don't you have a manuscript? Yes. How much time do I have? You have 2 months. Just do it. Now, I hang up the phone. I'm in my office. Before I notice, Vilma, Miriam's assistant, she's so efficient. And the pastor said, I already have all the information, so I start calling Bill Winston. I get all the information. I go home that night. I'm excited. I tell my wife, Daisy, we're going to Chicago March 23rd. This is going to be great. The pastor wants me to speak in this conference in front of all these people. This is phenomenal. What a blessing. And Daisy's looking at her iPhone, and all of a sudden I see that her composure changes. I say, honey, what's wrong? Yo no voy a Chicago. What's going on? She says, don't you know? Yo Soy Más. That's a Saturday of Yo Soy Más, and I'm not going to leave Mariam alone. How many ladies here have gone to Yo Soy Más? Well, you can't miss it in 2020. So, and then she says, y no me voy a pasar el sábado por la noche sola. In other words, I'm not going to spend Saturday night alone in Miami. I said, oh my God. The next morning, I get to the office and I call Bill Winston's Ministries. A very nice lady answers, and I said, listen, I have an issue. I have a problem which we need to resolve. I've already committed to come here. My wife is not coming. I need to get on the earliest noontime flight back to Miami that Saturday. Can you get that done for me? Says, Mr. Bermejo, don't worry. We'll get it done. We'll have you in the morning program early. You'll be out of here by noontime, and you'll be back to your wife in Miami on the 23rd. Now, immediately, housekeeping's been taken care of. All those issues are now resolved, and now I do what any normal businessman does. I do my due diligence. I go online, I figure out what is the topic, what are all the others going to talk about, how many speakers there are, and there were 8 speakers. All of them, men and women of God, accomplished all in their own rights, pastors, reverends, very important people. And then I take the group and I divide it into 2 groups. The ones that have no accent, that were born in the USA, and the ones that, like me, were born elsewhere and have an accent. So I start doing my research on the ones born here. There are people from Dallas, Minneapolis, St. Paul, New York, Chicago. I look them up, I read about them, I hear them on YouTube, and all of a sudden, I'm starting to feel okay with what the pastor had told me. Because I was concerned that I was going to lower the bar for Alpha and Omega. But I actually felt pretty good. And now I go to the group with accent. And there's this lady from Ghana. She's a banker, trade and commerce, accomplished woman, impressive. And then there's this guy from India. I started reading about him. And the more I read about him, the more I wanted to read about him. Now, I'm getting all excited about this guy and what his message is. I get home and I tell Daisy, I gotta tell you about this Indian guy that's in this conference. I tell her a little bit about it. We have dinner. At nighttime, I put those AirPods in my ear to not bother her while she tries to go to sleep. And I start to hear one of these conferences, and I go like this. I said, you have to listen to this stuff. Listen to him. My response in the middle of my need positions me for abundance. Let me repeat it. My response in the middle of my need. This guy's good. He really gets it, Days. I go into my room, I get out of bed, and I go pray. Dear Lord, let it be your good, agreeable, perfect will that you give us space between the Indian guy and me. Give him prime time. At the end, let me go first and out of Chicago before he speaks. I arrive early in the morning. I'm ushered into the green room. And there, sitting on the couch, all prepped up, dressed up, looked like a movie star from Bollywood, is the Indian guy. I walk in, and the son of Bill Winston walks in, says, "Good morning, Mr. Bermello. How are you? Let me introduce you to Dr. Samuel Chan. Mr. Chan, this is Mr. Bermello. Mr. Bermello, Mr. Chan is gonna go first, and you're gonna follow." My heart dropped. As I heard him that morning, his eloquence, his impactful and inspirational message, that little voice that I had been searching for when I first spoke with my friend, lovely friend, Pastor Rivera, spoke to me and said, "That's why you're here." The dots were connected. The intersection had taken place. My dear friends, there are 4 kinds of men in the world. Pastor, how many? There are those that don't know, and they know that they don't know. Those are men that you have to teach, you mentor, you train, and you educate. Then there are men that don't know, but they think that they know. And those are fools. You want to make sure they stay out of your path. They're not in your inner sanctum. They're not in your inner circle. And they're certainly not holding up your ladder. Then there are men that know, and they don't know that they know. And those are typically asleep. You have to get them a little jab. You got to wake them up. You got to put a fire under them. And then there are men that know, and they know that they know. And those are men that you follow. So it's my privilege and honor to introduce to you a man who's a self-made man, a former university president, a pastor, a leadership conference trainer, and a prolific writer, a man that knows, and he knows that he knows. Dr. Samuel Chan.
Lovely man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Please be seated. Please be seated. I wish my wife was here. To think that I know is really not true. But it's an amazing opportunity to be here and serve you. Thank you, Billy, for inviting me, and thank you, Pastor Delgado, for taking his word for it. We'll find out in a little bit if you should have or not. But it is an honor and privilege to be here with you today. Some of you looking at me and saying, "I know him from somewhere, looks familiar." You may have seen me at my gas station, or my Dunkin' Donuts, or Dairy Queen. Can you just move it this way? Yeah, thank you, sir. And my voice sounds familiar to you. So let me tell you who I am. When your computer goes down, and you talk for tech support, I'm here. I'm here. And just as an aside, this will help you. Talking louder is not the issue. The issue is you don't understand me and I can't understand you. So I said to you, go to settings and move you from there. It's an honor and privilege to be here. I also want to introduce my good friend Javier Carnejo. Javier, if you'll stand up, I just want everyone to see you. There you go. Yeah. Javier is an acquisitions editor for Whitaker House Publishing, and he heads up the Spanish side of all the publishing that goes on in the Spanish-speaking Christian world. And he's also the executive director of my Sam Chan Leadership Institute. And he lives in Miami. So I said, I'm going to be in Miami. Will you come see me? He says, sure. I'll be happy to see you. So we're delighted that he is here. Let me do some work over here. Let me see if you can tell me what this is. If the camera people want to put the camera on here, you can do that. Can someone tell me what that is? All right. This is North America? I'm very disappointed. I thought surely you all would know that this is South America over here. And because now I got to tell you everything, let me draw this out. Here we go. And this is the Panama Canal. Panama Canal. How many of you have been to the Panama Canal? Well, lots of hands. So here we go. So I was standing over here not too long ago, a few years ago, and I noticed that they were widening the canal. They were widening the canal. The reason they were widening the canal is because when they built this canal in 1916, they built it for the widest ships at that time. But how many of you know huge ships float now? Cities float now. And so what they did was they had to widen the canal to accommodate bigger ships. Here's the Pacific Ocean, here's the Atlantic. And they had to build the canal, to widen the canal to allow for bigger ships to come through. The challenge with us is all of us believe there are bigger ships that we have. Bigger vision, bigger future. We have bigger plans. We know where we're going. The destination is bigger. We have bigger businesses, bigger churches, more people to be saved, more business to be done. We have bigger things, but we're trying to force the big ships through the old canal. How many of you believe that your tomorrows are bigger than your yesterdays? And you cannot force your tomorrows through yesterday's canal. So I came up with a sentence, and I want to give you that sentence, and then unpack that for the next 3 hours. We'll be out of here before midnight. So here's the sentence. Your size and your speed are controlled by your systems and structures. Your size and your speed of your organization, the size and the speed of your business, the size and speed of whatever you are involved with will grow only to the size of your systems and structures. Because if you're not careful, your best opportunities are not going to go through here. Your best opportunity is going to take a detour around South America. So your best opportunities are going to be opportunities that come, but it will only be there because your size and your speed are controlled by your what? Systems and structures. Let me draw another drawing here, so don't disappoint me on this drawing. What is that? Thank you. You were going to give me a complex in a minute. That's the best drawing I can have. And a train runs on what? Tracks. Questions for you. Can you run a bigger, faster train on old tracks? No. If you were to run a bigger, faster train on old tracks, what's going to happen to the train? Going to derail. Question for you. If the train is built to go 200 miles an hour, but the tracks are built for 100 miles an hour, how fast is the train going to go? 100 miles an hour. So you see, it is not the size and speed of your train. You can have the best business plan. You can have the greatest vision. You can have the greatest idea that you want to implement. You can have all of those things, but they are not controlled by the train. They are controlled by the systems, how you run the train. So most people put together good programs. They have great ideas. They have great inventions. They have great vision. But most of it falls flat because we don't pay attention to the system that is over here. In fact, we live in a world of systems. Amazon. How many of you do some business with Amazon? Amazon. So where does Amazon grow its bananas? Nowhere. Where does Amazon manufactures washers and dryers? Nowhere. But Amazon is monetizing because they understand systems and structures. Airbnb. Do they own any houses? No. Uber. Uber is basically a glorified taxi service. So what does Uber and Lyft do? They tell you who's going to pick you up, how far they are. You don't have to carry cash. It's already prepaid. You can see the picture of the driver. You can even get a rating on them. It takes out all the unknowns out of the equation. It's all about systems and structures. Now, some of you are sitting over here and saying, well, you have not given us any Bible yet. So for those of you who are looking for Bible, here we go. I know the religious spirit in the crowd. He has not given us any Bible. Give me some Bible. So here we go. Just so that you will calm down and not walk out too early. Because you know you got a pastor here who is a Bible machine. So, and I know there's an Old Testament and a New Testament. That's about all I know. So God placed human beings on the planet in Genesis chapter 1 and 2 on the sixth day. Put human beings on the sixth day. So what did he do the first 5 days? Created light, dark, salt water, fresh water, steak, salmon. That's what he did. And some veggies too, by the way. I don't know where broccoli came from, but the rest of the veggies, I think God had something to do with that. So for the first 5 days, all God did was create systems and structures. So when he placed human beings on the planet, the systems will be there to sustain life. Luke chapter 10. You said that's Old Testament. Well, let me give you some New Testament. Luke chapter 10. He gets his 70 disciples together, 70 of them. And the Bible tells us he sends them out 2 and 2. That whole segue is all about systems and structures. So he takes the 70, puts them into 35 groups of 2s. And then end of verse 1 says, and send them into every city and village and place he was going to go to. So he had an itinerary. He had a system. And he sent them to 35 places. He tells them what to eat. Everything. What to say when you get into the house. When they receive you, say this. When they kick you out, do this and say this. He gives them systems and structures. In a spirit-filled church like this, 1 Corinthians 12, 13, 14 12 is about the gifts of the Spirit. It says here the gifts of the Spirit. Chapter 13 is the attitude of the gifts. Chapter 14 is the implications of the systems and structures of how to utilize the gifts. The 2 books of the Bible, maybe 3 of them, that most of us never read. Numbers, Deuteronomy, we don't even know how to spell Deuteronomy. And Leviticus, the 3 books that we skip over are nothing but systems and structures. God has a lot to do. God is a systematic God. He's not a haphazard God. In fact, Paul says to us about the coming of Jesus Christ, he said, in the fullness of time. There was a time going on with that. So we get into church, we get into our business, and we have to understand that our size and our speed is controlled by our systems and structures. One of the things that we want to pay attention to tonight is the people who are part of the making sure that the systems are in place, the people themselves. A number of years ago, I was in New York City in Queens, getting ready to speak to an audience similar to this. And they had me in an office upstairs. And as I was standing there, I was looking down on the street. And on the street, across the street, so here I am in this building, there's a street. Across the street, there are houses. And there's this man on the ladder. He's on a ladder painting the building that is out there. Now, the ladder went all the way to the top of the building. The ladder went all the way to the top. But I noticed something peculiar about him. He would go halfway up the ladder and paint as far as he could, and then he would come down and move the ladder over. And then he'd go up halfway, paint as far as he could, come back, move the ladder over. Now that confused me, because when I was in college in Atlanta in the early 70s, during the summer months, I made my living painting. And anybody who does any ladder climbing in here knows that once you're up the ladder, the last thing you want to do is go up and down. You're up the ladder, you want to go all the way up and paint, because you are all, and he had all the material. He had the paint, the brush, he had everything there, but he would not go all the way up. And as I was confused about that, I noticed why he was not going all the way up. Nobody was holding his ladder. He was painting by himself. And a thought occurred to me that you can have the ladder, you can have all the tools, you can have all the paint, but you will go only as high as who's holding your ladder. And so I want to give you a thought and build on that. Here's the thought. The ladder can be your vision for your church, vision for your business, vision for where you want to go. And you're the ladder climber, you're the leader, you are the one who's making it happen. Your ascent up the ladder and your success of reaching all the way to the top does not depend on your ladder or your ladder climbing skills. It all has to do with who's holding your ladder. Who's holding your ladder? If no one's holding your ladder, you cannot go high. So what did Jesus do? In Luke 3, gets baptized. Wilderness, chapter 4, 5, he calls Peter, James, and John. Chapter 6, he gets his apostles together. The first thing that Jesus does on this planet is get his ladder holders. You will go only as high as your ladder holder. So question is, do you have people holding your ladder? I'm here today because a lot of people in my office, Brother Willie's office, have worked together, and then you have worked with all the leaders in the church. I met Beatrice. She's got this headphone on, holding ladder sitting over there, pretending she's listening, but she is working right now, holding people's ladder. So we all have to understand that we cannot do what we do unless somebody is holding our ladder. So the question is, who's holding your ladder? And then the question is, what kind of a person is holding your ladder? Sir, can you help me here for a minute? Yeah, come on up. You're a pastor, right? Come on up. Your name, sir?
Edwin.
Edwin? I'm Sam.
Nice to meet you.
You too, sir. So, I want you to imagine that you have a 10-foot ladder, and I'm your ladder holder. 10-foot ladder, I'm your ladder holder. But God comes and gives you favor and extends your ladder. Gives you an extension ladder. It's a 25-foot ladder. Your vision is greater. Your business opportunities are greater. 25-foot ladder. I'm your 10-foot ladder holder. If you had to choose, don't be flexing those muscles. If you had to choose between Pastor Edwin and Sam, who are you going to choose? Now, I'm your guest. So when you realize that your life depended on it, you didn't care how I was introduced. You don't even know I might have a PhD in ladder holding. You don't know what a man of prayer I am. By faith, I can hold the ladder. But when your life depended on it,
Size matters.
you looked at him, you looked at me. None of you had to pray about it, fast about it, get counseling about it. You didn't have to call 1-800 ladder holder. You just looked at it and said, a taller ladder, bigger ladder, Sam is not a man. For 10 foot, Sam is okay. But for 25 foot, Sam's got to be moved. And Edwin has got to be brought in. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the dilemma of every organization, church and corporate. You're stuck with Sams. You have greater opportunities. You have greater vision. Edwin is available. But the problem is, what do you do with Sam? Thank you, sir. Hey, whoa. Why are you clapping for him? Made me look bad. Thank you, sir. Because in church especially, the favorite song in the church is, I shall not be moved. I've been here all my life. I've been doing what I do all these years. And so you have bigger opportunities, but you are stuck with Sam when you really need who? Edwin. You're not wanted by the law or anything like that, right? Because other people are watching right now, and Edwin. So our challenge is, if we are only as good as our ladder holders, what kind of ladder holders do we want? You see, the challenge in church and corporate, everybody knows who's got to go. You don't need a consultant to come in. People call me in to organizations and I'll tell them so-and-so's got to go. They're just wasting their money because they knew that before they called me. Everybody knows who's got to go, okay? How many of you got jobs? How many of you got jobs? At least you go to work, not that you work, but at least you go to work. You got jobs. Can I see your hands again? You got jobs. Okay, more hands went up. Okay, good. You got jobs. Question for you. If I could authorize you that if you go back to your job tomorrow, you could fire anybody with impunity. Nothing negative is going to happen to you. You don't have to check with anybody. You just walk in tomorrow and you can fire anybody. How many of you know now who you're going to fire tomorrow? Everybody knows who's got to go. So when as a leader, you don't make that call, the only person you're hurting is your own equity, your own leadership. Because the questions are, does he see what we see? Not doing anything about it? Doesn't he see what we see? What's wrong with that picture? When is someone finally gonna do something about it? Because all we do, we keep postponing it. We keep postponing it. Oh, Thanksgiving is coming. You don't fire no one like Thanksgiving. And then there's Christmas, And then there's January, it's a cold month. And then there's Easter. And then, their baby will be out for the summer. And we look for every reason. And because of that, our vision does not prosper. In fact, we keep delaying it, Okay, come work with me. You go to the doctor, and the doctor says, checks your shoulder, you're having some pain there, and the doctor says, you got cancer. But I got good news. You come in early, I can surgically remove all of it. We can just cut it out, no chemo, no radiation, just surgical removal of cancer from your right shoulder. And then he says to you, hey, listen, I got an opening next Tuesday, or the next opening I have is in March. Which opening are you taking? Tuesday. Why are you taking Tuesday and not March? Yeah, you want to get rid of it. And if you waited till March, what's going to happen? So we all have two-legged cancers walking around. And we keep saying, I'll wait till March. How's that working out for you? Because they start living in your head. And next thing you know, you go to bed thinking about them. You wake up thinking about, and then in church we want to make those changes without any blood on the floor. Can I just prophesy over you? There shall be blood. Without the shedding of blood, there's no remission. Now, there will be blood, hopefully more of theirs than yours, but there shall be blood. Because ladder holders are the ones who control how high you're going to go. So if you had a 25-foot ladder and I was still holding a ladder, you would only go to 10 feet. But you move me and you bring Edwin in, you can go all the way up. It all depends on who's holding your ladder. So I want to give you 5 qualities of a ladder holder. 5 qualities of a ladder holder. And just to make it simple to remember, we'll call it staff. Now, a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in a spirit-filled pastor's home. I've been in church all my life. I got saved when I was 7. I've been saved off and on since then. Yeah, I know. My theology allows for that. Some of you are having off day right now, too. So, how do we select the kind of ladder holders that we need? S stands for strong. And now let me define strong for you. Strong is people who can handle instruction and correction. Strong are people who can handle what? Instruction and correction. People, I don't know what's going on, but people are so fragile. You can hardly talk to them without them getting their feelings hurt. Just wimpy people now. When I was being raised, my dad didn't spank us. He beat us. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I mean, if he was alive today, he'd be locked up. But when you are so fragile, you're looking for strong people who can handle instruction and correction. Let me give you an example. This microphone is working perfect. Do you know the name of the person running the sound system?
Yes,
Orle? Orle. Orle, okay. Orly. Oh, I met Orly out there earlier. Yeah, Orly put this on me. Orly. There's an airport named after him in Paris. Orly. Have you ever been to a church service or a speaking where the microphone has pneumonia, asthma, bronchitis? It is wheezing. Anyone know what I'm talking about? And then and Orly is just like chewing his nails, tone deaf, and you get homicidal. Listen, let me tell you something about this platform. You can have all the spirit on you, but you can be homicidal too. Like, I'm gonna kill you. Yeah. That'll happen to everybody. So, there's Orly. And I know I don't want to say anything to Orly because things are bad. And if I say something to him, I'll say something bad too. That happens on Sunday morning. Monday, I meet Orly and say, hey, man, how are you? How's your mama? How's the family? You're such a blessing to us. Thank you for all that you do. Hey, Orly, did you happen to notice yesterday? Why do I have to go through all that drama? I just want to walk up to Orly and say, fix it, man, you're killing me. I'll come early, do a sound check, whatever you want me to do, but come on. Why do I have to make, say, paragraphs when all I want to do is a sentence? Because, see, the higher you go, the shorter your sentences. If you are on a 25-foot ladder and I'm not holding it right, you're not going to be up there saying, woo. Hey, Sam, how your mama? Now, keep it clean, keep it clean, keep it clean, keep it clean. I've said it 4 times, 5 times. Keep it clean. But when you are up there and I'm not holding a ladder, what are you saying to me? Hold the ladder. The higher you go, the shorter your sentences. Why do we have to talk in chapters and have to fix it for people and make them feel all good about themselves? When I say, man, you have a responsibility. Orly, by the way, you're doing really good. Can we thank God for Orly? Yeah, doing really good. The only time we look at Orly is when he does what? Messes up, and we look with that look like, what's wrong with you? Fix it, Orly. S, you want people who are strong, who can handle instruction and correction. T stands for teachable. People, to your introduction, people who are always open to learning. People who are always open to learning. You never know it all. Everybody can teach you something. Somebody can teach you what not to do. Somebody can teach you what to do. There's always people who can teach you. So how teachable are we? Teachable when you go from one corporation to another corporation. Teachable when you go from one church to another church. Teachable. People who are open to understanding. People are open to growth. People are open to saying, I am not where I used to be, but neither am I where I need to be. I'm going to continue to grow. What are you doing for your personal growth? What you're reading? What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you saying to yourself, I want to learn? Because having a teachable spirit says, teach me. Now, be careful with people who say to you, hey, if you ever need to say anything to me, if you ever need to correct me, please correct me. They are telling you something. Don't correct me. So whenever someone puts that out there for you, just kind of back away from there. But how teachable are you? How teachable am I? Because if you're not teachable, then we've learned. We're just walking corpses. I know people who are still living, but they died 10 years ago. because they know everything. Don't you feel like slapping those people? Whatever story you tell, they have a bigger story. Whatever, doesn't matter what you do, they're always trying to up you because they have this insecurity need inside of them to prove themselves. But when you are teachable, little children can teach you. Adults can teach you. People who have never finished high school can teach you. People who have finished PhD can teach you. Some of the wisest people I know have never finished third, fourth grade, but they got wisdom. And there's a big difference in knowledge and wisdom, teachable. A stands for attentive. By attentive, I mean people who learn quickly. Aren't you tired of repeating the same things again and again to the same people? Church announcements, total waste of time, by the way. Because you can sing about it, dance about it, PowerPoint about it, email about it, tweet about it, Instagram about it, Snapchat about it. They're still going to call and say, was that 7:30? The only people interested in announcements are if it is their announcement. But people who learn quickly, attentive. A few years ago, my wife and I bought a house, and at that time we had a dog. Her name was Maya. She was a collie. Lassie type dog, collie. Beautiful dog. She's with Jesus right now, waiting on me. Yeah, I miss her. So we moved into this neighborhood where they did not allow you to put fences. But my dog was an indoor-outdoor. She liked to play outside, come in all day long, in and out. So, but they wouldn't allow us to put fences. So we got the electric fence people out there, and they dug 18 inches deep all the way around the property. They dropped an electric wire in there, put a collar on her, and if she got close to a wire, she would get a low-level shock, and she would learn her boundaries. It was interesting the first day. She ran over here, got a shock, jumped back. Ran over here, got a shock, jumped back. Came over here, got a shock, jumped back. Church folk? And it's your fault. Why is it that people can't learn quickly? But a strong ladder holder, you don't have to say the same thing to them twice. They get it the first time. Don't you all yearn for people like that? Attentive people who learn quickly. This F stands for firm, F-I-R-M. People who are not blown about by manipulative people. You know, people never say straight stuff to you. They always talk in riddles. And then they will set you up. What do you think? Do you think things are changing here? And you say, yeah, things are changing. Next thing you know, Facebook, Maria says, things are changing. Yeah. You got to be real careful about firm people. I want to talk to church people just for a moment. Can I tell you what to do if anyone says anything negative about your pastor? Kill him. All you got to do is kill one. And I know you'll be locked up, but we'll come visit you. We have a jail ministry, yeah. We'll send you a CD or something like that every week. And then don't bury the body. Hang it out there with a sign saying, let this be a sign unto you. In all seriousness, I'm going to show you what to do under firm. People are not blown about by manipulative people. Don't go, you know, he's a pastor, he's a human being. You know, when in doubt, if you're married, I'm trying to help you right now. You're having a problem, to go, it solves a lot of stuff. Just try it tonight. If it doesn't work out for you, get slapped around, that's on you. So whenever somebody says something negative, this is what you need to say. We don't do that here. Put your hand out there, look them right in the eye, and say what? We don't do that. Okay, let's do that. This is the most exercising one. Get all day. Get your hand out there. Yeah. One, two, three. One more time. We don't? No, I need a little attitude like you're waiting on the car parking space and somebody cuts in front of you and your neck goes like that, your eyes roll, your shoulders go. Yeah, I need some attitude. 1, 2, 3. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you want ladder holders who are firm. I've never understood. And in corporation, why, in businesses, why does anybody stay on the payroll and talk bad about the people paying them? I mean, that does not even make sense, but people do that all the time. Firm. The final F is faithful. You want people who are faithful. But faithful people, I mean people who have faith in you as the leader. Faith in you as the leader. I told you, I've been in church all my life. I've never understood why people go to the same church Sunday after Sunday and don't like the preacher. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. It's like going to, what should I say? Joe's Barbecue Shack on a Sunday, and you go to Joe's Barbecue Shack and you come back and say, hey man, prices were high, food was lousy, terrible, service was terrible. I say, I'm sorry. You come back next Sunday, said, went back to Joe's Barbecue Shack. Lousy food, terrible service, high prices. I'm sorry. You keep coming back to me Sunday after Sunday. I'm going to look at you and say, you crazy? Go somewhere else. You want people who are faithful to you as a leader. Because if they're not faithful to you as a leader, they're not really receiving anything from you. In business, unless they respect you, unless they honor you, unless they see you as the leader, it's just going to be a job. They're not going to be a team player. You can have a lot of staff, but not a whole team player. So what did Jesus do? Jesus did something very different from how we select our ladder holders. Most churches select ladder holders by asking for volunteers. I'm going to suggest to you, stop asking for volunteers, start recruiting volunteers. Let me go there for a minute. Have you not noticed that when you ask for volunteers, the wrong people volunteer? People who can smile will volunteer to be greeters and ushers. Don't know what a toothbrush is? They'll volunteer to do that. People who hate kids will volunteer to be in kids ministry. People who can't sing will volunteer to be in the choir and praise. And then you're stuck. I mean, how do you unvolunteer a volunteer? That's a problem you make for yourself. Because the wrong people will always volunteer. And whenever you say, if you're interested in that, will you please call or sign up in the back or the kiosk or something like that? B and C level people will volunteer, but A level people, they're waiting to be recruited. Again, some of you are saying, do you have Bible for that? Glad you asked. From Genesis to John the Baptist, even though he's in the New Testament, he's living in the Old Covenant. From Genesis to John the Baptist, the disciple could volunteer to follow the master. But after John the Baptist, there's Jesus. From Jesus to the end of the book, you will not find volunteerism at all. You'll only find recruiting going on. And those who did say to him, there were a few people who he healed, who wanted to follow him, and he would never let them follow him. He said, no, go back to mama. I don't need you. You're Sam, I need Edwin. He would send them back. All of them were recruits. Let me give you a few examples of those, and then we're going to close together. Matthew. You know the story of Matthew? Matthew is a tax collector. He's a Jew, but a tax collector. Tax collectors were hated then, and we don't love the IRS either. But we do pay. So there's Matthew collecting taxes. Now tax collectors were hated people. Why? Because they had to gouge their own people to pay taxes to the Roman occupiers. So he would be gouging financially his own people, Jewish people, to give money to the Roman occupiers. The Bible tells us Jesus saw him collecting taxes. And the Greek says this. He saw him, and the word saw in the Greek is the word theomai. Theomai literally means observed for a long time with desire. Observed for a long time with desire. So Jesus is standing there, watches Matthew for a long time, and said to himself, he's doing a terrible thing, but he's doing it excellently. Because what Jesus knew is that when the New Testament opens, it'll open with the book of what? Matthew. So we know Matthew is written to the Jews. Mark is written to the Romans. Luke is written to the Greeks. And John is written to the church at large. Matthew to the Jews. And Jesus knew that the most important thing to Jewish community is what your ancestry. Who's your daddy? Who's your granddaddy? And so, Matthew chapter 1 opens up with 18 verses that none of us ever read. Right? We jump down to verse 18, and Jesus. But there are all these generations, so-and-so begat so-and-so. And Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, Matthew lays the gauntlet down by saying, Jesus, the son of Abraham and David. He lays it down at the very, very beginning. So why did he recruit Matthew? So that the gospel of Matthew would announce that he was actually the Messiah. That's why he recruited Matthew. I'm giving you illustrations to show you that no volunteers, but recruit for certain reason. How about Peter and John? Peter and John. John. So what do we know about John? That he was the disciple whom Jesus loved, the beloved one. How do we know that? Because John tells us that about himself. I don't know if you can believe all of that. It's like one of your kids says, I'm daddy's favorite. If you want to say that, that's cool, but I don't know if that's true. But John says, the disciple whom Jesus loved. Jesus is hanging on the cross. All his disciples have betrayed him. There's a foot of the cross, there's a mother, Mary. And then the disciple John. They're the only people that are down there. Jesus is hanging. It is pretty fair to assume that Joseph, Mary's husband, is already dead and gone. Jesus is the oldest son, and in that culture, while he is dying, he's taking care of his mother. And he looks down at his mother and says, Mama, behold your son. And says to John the beloved, John, behold your mother. Will you take care of my mama? And church history informs us that John took Mary home to Ephesus where he was pastoring, and she lived with him till her dying day. Fast forward to the day of Pentecost. Peter is there. Heaven is deciding who will preach the inaugural sermon on the day of Pentecost. Tongues of fire are there. There's wind, storm, people speaking in tongues. Pandemonium is breaking out. Everybody's wondering what's going on. But there's Peter. Peter the betrayer. Peter who's always open mouth, insert foot. Peter's always in trouble. One day Jesus got so mad at Peter, he's called him the devil. If Jesus calls you the devil, Take his word for it. You that. And so, there is Peter. And heaven decides that Peter is going to preach the inaugural sermon on the day of Pentecost. Had it been John, he would have said something like, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God." But Peter said, "You who crucified him, repent, be baptized, every one of you." And here's the lesson from that, recruiting. John was recruited to take care of mama. Peter was recruited to lead the church. And the irony of it is, Jesus saying, "I will trust my mama to you, John, but not my church." What do? We trust our most important vision to the people we love. But then there are Peters everywhere, aren't there? And somehow they irritate us, they aggravate us, they annoy us. But then I want to tell you the last story. Thomas. What do we call Thomas? We call him what? Doubting Thomas. Man doubted one time. And here we are, 2,000 years later, in Miami, 2019, still calling him doubting. Okay, let me ask you. How many of you have ever stolen something in your life? Stolen something. You've stolen something in your life. I feel a spirit of lying in this room. Some of you need to be standing up on the chair with both hands up so that you don't miss heaven over this question. I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself. I'm going to ask that question again. And I'm going to say it slowly in case you missed it with my accent. You maybe did not understand my question. How many of you have ever stolen something in your life? The apostle himself. Now, what would happen if we, instead of calling him Pastor Delgado, we call him Thief Delgado? Here we are, 2,000 years later, still dogging poor Thomas. But let me tell you about Thomas. Thomas, doubting Thomas, traveled the furthest distance to take the gospel of Jesus Christ. He came to my country, the country of India. And on the southeast side, on the peninsula, where there's the city of Chennai, used to be known as Madras, but now known as Chennai, church history informs us that one early morning, Thomas walked up to the beach and he noticed the Hindu priests waist deep in the water, picking up water, throwing it to the sun as an act of worship, to the sun god, water god to the sun god as an act of worship. Church history informs us that Thomas observed that for a while. And then he walked in among the Hindu priests, waded into waist-deep water, said to the Hindu priests, "You throw up water to your god, the sun god, and it comes back down. If I was to throw water to my God and it does not come down, will you believe in my God?" The fight was on. Church history tells us he picked up water in his hands and threw it into the sky, and the water hung in midair. And that's how Christianity came to India. I just happen to believe that Jesus recruited Thomas just for me, so that I could stand on this platform at Alpha and Omega in Miami, Florida on October the 17th, 2019 and declare Jesus is Lord. So if you're a leader, I want you to think about, pray about, meditate on the thought, who are the people I need to recruit? There are people all around you just waiting to be asked. If you ask them because there's a purpose in their life. So the question still remains, who's holding your ladder? Let me pray with you. Lord, I thank you for allowing me to be a vessel of yours this evening at Alpha and Omega, and people from other churches and other businesses who are here today. Lord, I pray that you will allow us to do what you did for us. Select our ladder holders. Help us not to be dismayed or discouraged by replacing old ladder holders with the Edwins that you bring into our life. Lord, thank you for bringing people into our life who can be ladder holders that are needed for you and your kingdom and for your service. Lord, I pray for every leader in this room, corporate, church, crossover, corporate and church, church and corporate, regardless of our leadership placement. Help us to know that our size and our speed is controlled only by systems and structures, and our ladder holders control how high we go. Give us courage and give us wisdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Before I turn this over, I want to give away my free books in English and Spanish. I'm not selling them. I'm not selling. Do you know how hard it is for an Indian to say free? Don't try that at my store. Yeah. So if you'll put English, no. You'll get in the mail. You'll get in the mail. Hard copy like this.